Let's bring in national political editor for the Herald Sun, James Campbell. James, great to see you. Look, today marks day 3 of Daniel Andrews' trip to China. You just heard Bill Shorten kind of struggle to defend Daniel Andrews at the end of my program. Look, what is going on? He's under a lot of pressure now from Cheng Lei's family as well to raise her case while he's on the ground in Beijing.
Well, I can think of a few journalists he'd perhaps like out here he'd probably like to swap her for. But he's not going to do it. He's not interested in that. He's there to do. We're not exactly sure. The thing to understand about Daniel Andrews' trip to China is that in the 8 years or so he's been Premier, he's never liked to travel with newspaper reporters. I can only think of one newspaper reporter who's ever travelled on a foreign trip with him. He likes to take TV reporters and leave people like me at home. Not that I'm sorry to have missed this, but it's an extraordinary performance, this whole thing. I mean, we at the Herald Sun Sunday Herald Sun found out by accident on Saturday afternoon when I was calling someone in China about another story completely unrelated. And the person I was speaking to said, "Oh, I thought you were ringing me about the Premier's trip here next week." I said, "What?"
Oh, wow.
And then they were it's just extraordinary, and I don't think I'm not even convinced they would have told us if we hadn't found out independently and The Age hadn't found it out independently. The other extraordinary thing about this is, as far as I can discover, the federal government was only told about this trip last week.
Wow.
Now, you'd think, given the sensitivity of our relationship with China, they would have been having close conversations with the federal government, where, as we know,
and with
the Trade Minister Don Farrell has yet to visit.
Getting foreign advice, getting security advice about what you do with your mobile phone, all of that, which would have changed since the last time that Daniel Andrews was actually there, because he hasn't been there since before the pandemic. James, I want to ask you about another big story today. The Voice bill, the actual legislation, was introduced into the lower house this morning. Have a quick listen to how it went down.
We invite you to walk with us in a movement of the Australian people for a better future. It is now 2023. It is time to accept the generous invitation in the Uluru Statement from the Heart. It is time to listen.
Today, with the introduction of the Constitution Alteration Bill, we are one step closer to making history.
And on the same day, James, some very eminent legal minds have spoken out about their concerns about which matters the Voice would actually apply to.
Correct. And the Prime Minister was asked about this directly in question time today, and he spoke essentially about the vibe of the thing in similar terms to the Attorney General there, but he didn't even go close to being in the same postcode as the question that was asked of him. They just don't want to answer that question at all. And the problem is they can do that if they like, but it's difficult to see how they're going to get the Australian public to support this if they won't answer basic questions like that.
Yeah.
I think that this thing is in real trouble now. There's no question about it. It's very, very unfortunate.
Absolutely. Now, the ACTU is calling on the government to address the cost of living crisis. They're demanding a 7% rise in the minimum wage from July 1, and this is for the lowest paid workers, and it would keep their pay in line with inflation. Is this going to happen, do you think?
Probably. Something close to it. It'll probably get around. I mean, it won't, maybe it won't be exactly what they asked for, but it'll be close or thereabouts. The thing to understand about the minimum wages, though, although they haven't risen, particularly, there's still something that you or I probably would like to be working on. They have actually kept pace with inflation much more closely than sort of middle rank of wages. Which is something I think we should probably be quite happy about in this country. The minimum wage has outperformed average wages for quite a few years now. It is inflationary. Of course, it's inflationary. These are the times in which we live. We have a government that is probably going to smile upon this when they get to the commission. So you would expect it's going to look something like this, not precisely.